quick, Senator, because I know we're going to squeeze your time in as best we can. So what I'm going to do is, as I've promised, because we didn't do it last week, this is part of our benefits to our members, our premium members, our executive associate members. So before I introduce our president, if you would bear with me and enjoy this message from our premium sponsor, Southern California Gas. We're going to try that one more time. Give me 1 second. All right, thank you so much, guys, for that. Now, with no further ado, so we can get to Senator Portantino, I would like to introduce our president, Lindsay Horvath, please.
Oh, thank you so much, Marcel. Just want to thank you and Jorge and all of your staff for the work that you've done to make this this legislative tour possible virtually during COVID-19. I want to thank all of our leadership in contract cities and everyone who's able to participate today. We want to continue providing value for your membership and giving you opportunities to access the decision makers you need the most right now to support you and your cities through this very difficult time. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you're doing in support of the association to further our work. And now I'll throw it back to you, Marcel.
Thanks, Lindsay. Now off to our Legislative Committee Chair, Stacey Armato.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you everyone for being here today with us. I am so honored to introduce State Senator Anthony Portantino. He represents California's 25th State Senate District, which includes many of the foothill cities and parts of the city of Los Angeles. Senator Portantino has a long and distinguished record of service, which includes nearly 8 years on the La Cañada Flint Ridge City Council, serving 2 terms as mayor. I actually think I was wrapping up my high school senior year at Flint Ridge Sacred Heart on the Hill while you were campaigning for city council, Senator. That was a long time ago. Senator Portantino also served as legislative chair of Contract Cities and president of the League of California Cities, Mayors, and Council Members Department. The senator graduated from Albright College in Pennsylvania, where he met his future wife, Ellen, a business executive at Warner Brothers. They have 2 daughters, and here's a fun fact. The senator has often said that he governs through the lens of being a dad. How would a policy affect his own daughters, other people's children, and the state of California? You can tell that he approaches his decisions with a lot of heart. Last week, we talked about leadership and taking responsibility for one's actions. And today, I want to acknowledge another important element of leadership, and that's doing what's right, even when it may be unpopular or go against even your own political party. In 2011, when he was then Assembly Member Portantino, he went to bat for cities when he voted against a budget that was aggressively pushed by the governor and the speaker. He was concerned about the impacts of AB 109 and what that would do to cities throughout the state. And he was, in fact, the lone Democrat to vote against the budget. He was punished for going against the speaker, and it was severe. Some even said it was the harshest example of retribution they had ever seen. But Portantino never backed down, and he ended up winning the court of public opinion, as evidenced by the fact that he is now a beloved state senator and the champion for California contract cities. Everyone, please join me in the virtual welcome of Senator Portantino. Thank you for being here.
Well, Stacey, I'm going to take you everywhere. You did better talking about me than anybody I've ever heard. So thank you. And I love the check will be in the mail. But it's good to be with Contract Cities. And Madam President, they left out the part where you helped Sophia get backstage at a concert in West Hollywood years ago. So I am a dad, and I always govern through the lens of my daughters. And I learn a lot from them every day. I apologize. I'm waiting to hear from a Metro. They're just moving on to the item that I'm going to do. But it's good to be back with Contract Cities. Obviously, you know, I was the ledge chair, as mentioned, and our city, Lafayette Flintridge, has always been a strong supporter of Contract Cities, and I try to come as much as I can. This year, legislatively, look out for our SB 15. We reintroduced our housing repurposing of dormant commercial property bill, and that had a lot of support last year from cities and GoBiz, and this year the building trades are on board as a co-sponsor of the bill. So look out for that. We're also doing a bill for MWD to help with the PFAS situation. So that's another one that a lot of the cities might be interested in tuning in. And we just passed, literally a half hour ago, the rental protection legislation as part of the budget, extending the moratorium on evict rents and try to make renters whole. There's a lot of legal assistance in it, so you guys should get the particulars of that budget action that we just took literally a half hour ago, because the deadline was the end of the month of the prior legislation, so that's really important. This year I'm doing a lot on school issues, mental health. Obviously, having all our kids home from school for a year is creating extra demands on mental health services and putting a lot of pressure on our kids. And so I have several bills dealing with mental health curriculum and also mental health first aid. So I'm very proud to be working with a lot of the support system within the mental health community on that legislation. My package isn't completely filled out. We're putting in a few more bills in the next couple of weeks. What else can I share? It's crazy up here. I'm wearing my mask. I'm in the Capitol, so obviously we're doing our social distancing. I implore everybody to wear your masks and masks, because you can still have a remnant of the virus in you and you can still pass it on. I look at masks as an extension of being a good neighbor. We're good neighbors, and you know, if you wear a mask, it means you love your neighbor. And frankly, if you're not wearing a mask, it means you don't really love your neighbor. It's not a political statement. It's an expression of how much we care about each other. So practice social distancing, wear your mask. I don't know if you want me to take any questions, but that's some of the highlights of the bills that I'm introducing this year.
Well, thank you, Senator. And we know you're busy, but if you do have a few moments, we can continue to pull you away. I know that we may have some questions from the audience here. And just a gentle reminder, if you are—
Yeah, I just got a text that they started. Oh, go ahead.
You're here. We hear you.
What I said is they just called for public comment, so I have a little time.
Oh, terrific. Oh, good. And gentle reminder, if you are not the senator, please mute your mic, please. And since he has a few minutes for questions, we will take them. Please go over on the participants link and just click the raise your hand so that we know that you would like to speak. And I see that we have our first question is from Margaret Clark. Go ahead, Margaret.
Margaret helped me get elected to the League of Cities Mayors and Council Members Board 100 years ago.
Wonderful. Margaret, are you with us still?
Yeah.
There you are.
Going in and out. Yes, yesterday, the LA division of the League of Cities, which I'm on the executive board, I made the motion to be a co-sponsor of SB 15 because it's a great bill. And with all the horrible other housing bills that we appreciate you voting against, we really appreciate you doing the SB 15. So thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Yeah, SB 15 is an attempt to sort of duplicate the sales tax that you would get from the dormant retail in order to incentivize workforce housing. So I'm glad to have the league. Contract City should come on board too.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that, Margaret and Senator Portantino. As I recall, we supported your bill last year, and we will certainly take a look at it again this year in an effort to support your creative ways to address housing and filling that gap in funding too for cities, or loss of revenue due to building housing. Let's see if there's do we have any more questions? We have a lot of people in attendance here. I'm sure you guys are itching to ask Senator Portantino a question. And Marcel, do you have any questions on your end? Wanted to make sure.
So Senator, can you give us sort of an idea of what the temperament is going to be in Sacramento? We're hearing a lot. We heard from the speaker last week or the week before. So we're just trying to get an idea, you being an incredible champion for local control, is there anything that you're seeing or that you've seen so far that's going to be a threat to local control, other bills that we should look out for, bills that are going to be positive for us? What is kind of the tone up there? We're hearing equity and that type of stuff when it comes to medical care, housing, of course, like financial stability. So what are you seeing, and what are you seeing in the budget or potential bills to help cities get the funding they need to recover after the pandemic?
Well, there's certainly going to be a lot of focus on housing, both from a financial perspective. I think the final budget's going to have resources in it, but there's also been the reintroduction of SB 1120. So that is one that you should take a look at. That's the Pro Tem's bill. You know, that's something where you should definitely wade in on. It's a softer version of past legislation. But it may have some concerns that you might want to address. But there's going to be a lot of resources. I think the big takeaway is the budget was not as bad as we anticipated. Revenues were actually strong. That presents its own challenge because whenever you have more money to spend, everybody wants a piece of it. And so the budget's, oh, they're going to public comment. And I got to run. I'll come back. I got to do public comment. I'll be right back. All right. I got to run.
Thank
okay,
you.
we'll work amongst ourselves. So he's going to come right back. So one of the things, Stacy, that we want to do when he comes, oh, there he is. Well, he's going to come in and out. We lost him. One of the things that I think if he's able to rejoin here in the next couple of minutes is we want to ask him about the actions he took in 2011. We've heard him speak. A lot of us that are on the call today have heard him speak at our AMS and different events for Contract Cities about sort of the wherewithal that took. He found himself on the very bad side of the speaker, who was Speaker Perez at the time. And so it's a true testament. We need more like him. I know we've heard that from a lot of our elected officials. We need more folks like him fighting for local control and fighting for cities up in Sacramento. So if he's able to join us, I'd like to hear some more about what that experience was like for him and how it helped shape him into who he is as a senator. But if we don't, I don't know that we have our next speaker joined yet.
We'll definitely ask him that question, and I'm curious about hearing from his perspective as well. Do you want to play maybe the governor's video?
Yeah, this is a great time to do that. So why don't we do that? I'm going to switch my, I got to switch some views here, and then if you'll give me 1 sec, we'll make the switch. Hang on a second.
Hey everybody, it's Governor Gavin Newsom. And first, let me just thank Mayor Horvath for inviting me to address the leaders and the lawmakers of California's 70 plus contract cities. Look, as a former mayor myself, I know that local government is truly where we meet people's needs most directly, particularly during these unprecedented times. You've stepped up and stepped in to protect your residents from one crisis after another. And these efforts, I assure you, have not gone unnoticed, both by our administration, but more importantly, by the people who call your cities home. You know, since I can't be there with you to share our 2021-2022 legislative priorities in person, I'd like to share with you the work that we've been doing on issues like housing and vaccines, schools, and small businesses. First, we're continuing to make progress in addressing the housing crisis in this state by providing more supports for housing availability. We're building on some of the most extraordinary partnerships, at least from my perspective, that we forged with cities all across the state. Projects like Project HomeKey, Project RoomKey. These are nation-leading efforts to acquire hotels for formerly homeless individuals and to help respond to the COVID pandemic head-on. You know, the state has awarded some $846 million to 51 local agencies to secure over 6,000 housing units, permanent units, for individuals and families who had been homeless. We did that all together in less than just 6 months. Second, on vaccines. Look, there's light at the end of the tunnel, I assure you. We've tripled, working together, we've tripled, and we will sustain our pace to significantly increase the administration of vaccines. We're taking additional measures every single day to do more and do better. And thanks to the spirit of collaboration, the spirit that defines our partnership, we're ramping up these larger vaccine sites as well. You've seen recently in partnership with City of LA, Dodger Stadium, Petco Park down in San Diego, Cal Expo closer here in Sacramento. We want to continue those partnerships with you and others on vaccination events, large and small, to make sure we reach populations that have been underserved and under-resourced in the past. Equity always as the lens to which we advance our vaccination efforts. Third, schools. I got 4 kids, so this one comes close to home. Look, throughout this pandemic, we've been guided by the principle that learning is non-negotiable, and neither is the safety of our kids and our school staff. So we're investing in our Safe Schools for All plan with a measure that will help get our kids back into the classrooms safely. We proposed some $6.6 billion of investments for early action in partnership with the legislature to help get our schools reopened, resume in-person instruction safely. And finally, important issue I know to each and every one of us, that's the issue of support for small businesses. As a small business owner myself as well, I know that these are really the engines of our economy, and they embody the best of the American dream, certainly the California dream. And if we're going to preserve our competitiveness moving forward, it means lifting up our entrepreneurs and our innovators. So our budget that we just introduced, it doubles down on our supports and tax relief, credits, loans, grants that will help small businesses weather this pandemic, investing well in excess of $1 billion for our entrepreneurs. Look, these are just a few highlights of our budget and the work that we're continuing to do with you in partnership. And we look forward to doing it together so we can work our way through this pandemic and get out on the other side. So let me, spoken so long, let me sum up by just saying this. Thank you. Thank you for not only the opportunity to address you, but thank you for what you do each and every day. And let's continue the spirit of partnership and collaboration, and let's continue the good work, and let's all stay safe as well. Take care, everybody.
All right, good stuff. So I understand our next speaker is on, so I will hand it off to you, Stacy.
All right, thank you, Marcel, and thank you to President Horvath for ensuring that the governor could deliver that message for us. Please let him know that we are grateful that he took the time to speak to us. And next up, I am honored to introduce Senator Henry Stern. Senator Stern is a native of the greater Los Angeles area and represents nearly 1 million residents of the 27th Senate District since first being elected in November of 2016. His district encompasses parts of the San Fernando Valley, Conejo Valley, most of Los Angeles western suburbs, and a slice of the Santa Clarita Valley. Senator Stern has chaired the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee since 2018, where he's worked tirelessly to improve the state's wildfire preparedness, push to have the state address our climate change emergency, and work towards increasing the use of renewable energy. And just this last December, the senator was appointed the chair of the Joint Legislative Committee on Emergency Management. He's also committed to helping some of California's most vulnerable residents, including the elderly and human trafficking survivors. A former educator and environmental attorney, Senator Stern received his undergraduate degree from Harvard University and his law degree from UC Berkeley. His political career started around the holiday season in December of 2003 when he joined his dad, Daniel Stern, on a USO handshake tour. On this eye-opening holiday, he was in Iraq eating Burger King with US soldiers in one of Saddam Hussein's former palaces. And here's another interesting tidbit about Senator Stern. He's passionate about surfing. Dating back to 2017, he's hosted an annual surf summit for children across Los Angeles. He lives in LA County with his wife, Alexandra Stern, whom he married in 2019. Please join me in welcoming Senator Stern. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Stacy. It was quite a deep dive you guys did on my file there. I'm really impressed. I don't think that's in the standard bio, by the way.
We leave no stone unturned.
I was going to say, I think that's from like my college newspaper, some op-ed I wrote. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you all. We just came off the floor here. I'm in Sacramento right now, just passed a rent relief package. And so just pivoting through this crisis here, and you all are, at the tip of the spear here, on the ground, doing it. And I think contract cities, I happen to have maybe an outsized view of your weight and your relevance and your know-how, but I think it's because I grew up in those kinds of communities. Being a kid who got to live in the city of Malibu for a stretch of my life, but watching Agoura and Calabasas, and then the hinterlands of West Hollywood out there to your chairwoman, Ms. Horvath. There's a certain style of governance. There's a certain attention to detail. There's a certain size and attitude that I think is unique. And we're going to need you guys as strong as possible as advocates this year. It's a tricky time to do advocacy. So even right now, we're on a Zoom together, and it doesn't have the same feeling as showing up and walking the halls when something's of interest. But I actually think you have more efficient access to legislators this year in some ways than having to do the Southwest flight game. And from any of your jurisdictions, wherever you are, if you're down in, Rolling Hills Estates, or all the way up in, way up in the Central Coast, or if you're out east, you can get to any of us instantly. And I think people, when it comes to issues like land use, housing, homelessness, mental health, some of these broader structural budgetary issues around pandemic response. And then I would also submit, and I have a more acute focus on this in our district, but wildfire and disaster prevention issues, I think, are also going to be a really big deal going forward this year. So I don't know how you want to structure this at all. I see one of our emeritus mayors on the call locally. Where is he? Lou Lamont's on here somewhere. I spotted him.
He is here with us.
Looking good, sir. And you also have our current mayor. I didn't see. Wait, no, but Mikey's here. Fantastic. You are our once and future mayor. Is that right, Mr. Pearson? Is that a fair way to put it? Once and future. Let's keep it rolling. Anyway, I don't know who else is on this call, or if you want to open up some Q&A or give a little perspective. If you want me to take a deep dive, for instance, on my views on, say, the housing package or some of these wildfire land use development issues that are coming down the pike, I'm pretty deep in the weeds there. Folks are interested in pandemic response. and dollar allocations. I'm happy to dig into a little more detail there. I got 10 minutes or so here, 10, 15 minutes to help inform you all. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of very pointed impacts on contract cities this year. And I think you're going to have to be vigilant, and there's big steamships moving that are tough to seem like you can steer. But I actually think if we get engaged really early in the process and due diligence and get into details, then we can try to keep the politics rolling in the right direction, especially on things like housing, where I think we're still in a formative phase, but it's not an obvious advocacy puzzle. It's a bit labyrinthic, if you will. So,
well, since you have some flexibility, Senator Stern, why don't we address an issue that's of importance to all of our cities and our organization, and that is on the housing bills. What is your position? How are you balancing what us as cities want to try to maintain, and that's local control, and the housing crisis? How do you balance those interests?
I haven't found my footing, to be quite honest, yet. I'm not particularly comfortable with the current structures and frameworks that we've been pushing out of the Senate, at least in the last couple years here. I didn't support the SB 50 approach, and then we took another crack at that sort of duplexing approach, looking at the subdivision mapping and utilizing that MAP Act as a way to upzone sort of across the board ministerially. And I didn't support that measure last year either, even though it was the pro tem's legislation. That was SB 1120. So it's not for a lack of trying. I think I personally am trying to find some kind of housing framework that addresses that sort of more general across the board approach, but doesn't undercut critical environmental reviews, public safety reviews. There are things that I worry about in particular. My discontent with all that is really hinged on public safety and wildfire issues. I know that there's broader structural governance questions too about the efficacy of just being able to do quality planning and project by project work and community integrity and a lot of these other questions and procedural issues. But my central problem has been I don't want to pack in a bunch more density into canyon roads and deep into our suburban areas that are now in wildfire or other public safety risks that don't have adequate parking, that don't have adequate egress, and I don't think we yet have a plan for how to deal with that risk. And I think I'm not. It's going to be a significant concern when it happens, and I don't want it to be too late. And we've been through too many of these catastrophic events, and more are coming. And it's not necessarily even those who are just in fire country, earthquakes, and there's actually flood risk. And some of the gateway cities know about those issues in Whittier Narrows. I mean, that's a little more acute down in South LA. But LA County was rated the #1 most vulnerable place to live in the whole country. FEMA just did an analysis, and that's because there's serious issues, and it results in inequities too. So that's been my central concern around the housing, is it has not taken any of that into account. Now they're taking into account historic districts and some of those issues. So those of you who have sensitivities there may be happier about that adjustment, but I just don't think that's sufficient. That's a sufficient sort of retooling to really give this whole framework integrity right now. So we got a bill that tries to at least put an amendment framework out there. It'd be a moratorium on new development in very high fire severity zones. And it's a bit of a blunt instrument, I'll admit right now, because a hard stop, and that doesn't include rebuilds, but it is saying, not supplying new infrastructure services out to new subdivisions or housing developments. I mean, it would be, we're not looking to extend new gas and power and water lines out to new subdivisions, and we're also not looking to build in those zones. I mean, that kind of hard stop, I would imagine, would give some of y'all heartburn. Those of you who have areas already queued up for projects, but maybe some of you doesn't affect at all, and you're not in that kind of territory. But for us in the mountain kind of hillside communities, it's a big deal. So anyway, Stacy, that's just kind of my focus in the conversation. But there are other issues too, just more broadly around governance and infill development, and the Wiener framework I still think has got some flaws to it. It's got a head of steam though. That all those bills, I'll tell you, just be blunt with everyone on the call. I mean, that's the pro Tems package. Like, the housing bills are moving. That's happening. So I mean, it feels as though it's coming. So if you have specific issues, now is the time to start to get engaged.
Well, thank you for your thoughts, and thank you for taking a comprehensive look at these bills and the implications of the cities that you represent, and a lot of the cities that are part of contract cities as well. I see that there's a question. Velvet, do you have a question?
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Senator, for being with us. And, those of us who are in districts such as yourselves or Senator Allen, we enjoy a good collaborative relationship. And to the points that you were just discussing, it would seem that we at the local level have dynamic, creative solutions for all of these things. We in our city enjoy a lot of open land. We are fierce protectors of our environment. We are creating housing. We have an aging population that needs that sort of support. And so to the extent that we are able to communicate that to someone like our senator, and he's a champion for us, what could we do for other areas who also know their local area, who are eager to have housing, who might need some support? And we have such creative, innovative ways to look at this, and bolstering those connections with those of you supporting and representing us in Sacramento. We've found a way to work with our senator, but is there a way that you could sort of extrapolate that to the bigger group to say, these are the things that create efficacious relationships. Let's go out and mimic that so that we continue to work collaboratively, not in an antagonistic way against one another. Because I think we all want the same things, and we've been pit against one another, I think, to our detriment. And if we could come to the table with some grace for one another, expecting the highest in each other, I think we could really solve a lot of our problems while still protecting our environment, while creating dignified living spaces. So I just have a lot of hope, because I know how we've worked with our representatives, and I'd be curious to see what advice you have for the rest of us to create that.
It's hard, it's hard because, look, my district's interesting because I got 50% of it's LA City, right? And so, when I think of permanent supportive housing and our board and care strategy and where to get more affordable units, Warner Center is a great example, right, in Woodland Hills, where we did a specific plan, bunch of community buy-in, have a 2025 and 35 vision. We're going up, we're going out, mobility, transportation, bunch of investment, infrastructure, like all in. And the tricky thing right now is, I think, I don't want to reopen the whole RHNA conversation, because it's proven to be not that appetizing to this governor to do anything around RHNA or development there. But I think there's an opportunity to go above RHNA. I think there's an ability to actually get more affordable housing in at a regional level, and all commit ourselves to the goal of more, to solving the homelessness crisis, but also the eviction crisis that's about to become the homelessness crisis, and to add supply, like to actually acknowledge the supply issue, be bullish, but be surgical and pick our spots. And don't let it be sort of just happenstance development, and be a little tough. I mean, even Warner Center is tough right now because we want affordability up. Like, we want it at 20%. And they're saying, 5 or 10. And you get into those negotiations, but I think we all can help each other if we're lifting together, right? Then people can't end around one jurisdiction to get to another, and no one's getting a sweetheart deal. Everyone's sort of lifting their standards together. And I think we can do something. So, and I think the Senate legislation is going to be part of that. I really do. I think there's, it's getting closer. But I don't think it's going to solve the affordability issue. I think it's going to do a lot about supply, but I still think we got a big affordability problem, and that's hard. I mean, especially in your guys' areas where services are in high demand, and you're on those contracts, and you're trying to sort of right size your decision making. I mean, housing is always a tough one for a contract city to make, right? Over retail and other sales tax, right? So I mean, if you're willing to take that leadership, we should be getting your back. It's not an easy spot for you to be in, because just from a revenue perspective, it's not the DNA of this system, right? So I think that's also going to be on county leadership, and I think that counties, your counties, and getting your advocacy aligned with both your supervisors and your state legislators is going to be key to making this work, because they're tip of the spear. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah.
We have another question from Frank Zarunian. Frank.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for being here, first of all. And I absolutely like your comments. RHNA is not going to be solved city by city. RHNA is going to be solved regionally, surgically, as you put it. But unfortunately, as recently as a few days ago, we got pushback from your chamber and otherwise, using the word equity to push back on a plan that we precisely were trying to put forth in an attempt to regionalize RHNA and come up with a solution that actually builds housing units, affordable units, as opposed to creating the backlog that we've created. Let me be very clear, and I think you as a lawyer, I as a lawyer know it full well, that the private sector builds and the way we're going, cities are going to be forced to simply say, okay, fine, we'll plan for it, but unfortunately, nothing will be built. So can we convince your colleagues that we're all for equity, but equity means building roofs over people's heads. Equity does not mean to go to Malibu and make Malibu Manhattan. So this is what I am very frustrated.
And I agree, Frank, you're so spot on. And remind me if this is still the impasse, but even if Malibu were to take an equity stake in Warner Center and say, actually, hey, there's a great spot for growth. Actually, forget 20%, let's make that 35% and go right over the hill, right over to Penn Canyon Boulevard into where you're not in a fire zone and you can build. That's seen as sort of buying your way out of your duty, right? Of your equitable duty to provide housing. And I think there's something to, I like the diversity. Like as Malibu kid, right? I like having multifamily in the mix and the smaller places and not, I don't know. I always fear the mansions, but it's not to say you shouldn't be pursuing multifamily. And I really think that we got to be really careful about this whole single family rhetoric. That's not I know it feels right to the homeowners associations, and trust me, I coach these folks and try to get them focused, but I don't know that you're going to win that argument, and that doesn't feel right. You start to lose the other side. But to me, it's about cost of land and movement of capital and actual units over time, aggressive. Like I said, go beyond RHNA. If you start to reframe the conversation and found a way to study, if you had RHNA reform with more than RHNA, if you beat it, then you might get heads to turn a little bit. You're not saying we're going to drag our heels and we want to buy our way out of our thing and sell it to someone else and cap and trade your way through RHNA, if you will. You're saying, no, it's not enough. Let's right size it. And SCAG's ready to go and we can do this. I know there's tensions around that, obviously, of setting a higher marker. But if you actually found that readjustment arrangement and folks were happy with it and you had a stronger consensus than you have now, I don't see why they shouldn't, that would move the table to me. But maybe I'm shaking my head because I'm it would be a Hail Mary. It really doesn't, right now it feels so untouchable. anyone even with good faith. Laura Friedman is not, you know, a NIMBY, right? Laura Friedman is like gung-ho on housing and trying to be creative and a wonk and whatever. She put out a RHNA reform framework 2 or 3 years ago. It didn't even go to first committee. It was like just kicked out. Go look at that bill. It's an interesting framework. I think it's probably what somewhat related to whatever you all put on the table. I would love to see that, by the way, and give you some feedback. And I don't know, maybe try to pull a rabbit out of a hat and see if we can maybe get some. What I keep thinking is if there's someone from the NGO or academic community that could actually put some oomph and do an interesting partnership, say between contract cities and, you know, housing affordability group, and do a joint study together and actually scope out something new. Do things like that that are going to make people be surprised, not just same old same. They think they know what's coming from you when you lobby. You know, my new city council members in the district may not know this. Steve, you know, you'll be initiated into Sacramento Capitol politics, or you are now, Mr. Uhring. But you know, it's a little bit predictable for members. I mean, to Ms. Schmitz's point, like you've got to build a unique relationship with your legislator. And I'm trying to think of creative ways you can repackage or reform that concept and maybe make it fly. Hey, I gotta maybe take one more, and then I gotta jump. I know you guys got other more important people to than me. I tuned in and the governor was on. I'm like, oh my God, I'm interrupting the gov. Like, what am I doing here? So.
Oh, we're lucky to have you, Senator Stern. And maybe I could just ask you, first of all, we will be contacting your office with an idea for a bill that we do have that we believe addresses the housing crisis, which is truly an affordability crisis. So we will touch base with you on that.
Great.
But if you wouldn't mind leaving us in this last minute or two in what you believe the top priority is for the legislature this year, so that we can identify what that is.
I mean, we got to get out of the pandemic. I mean, that's, you know, and recover the economy. So, I mean, it's everything else is secondary, and everything else is contingent on it. Because if we suddenly spiral, say, into like just total political upheaval, and we end up in a recall, and then we're like trying to dismantle the gears of government, and everyone's furious at everyone. It's like the left is mad and the right's mad, and everyone just like ripping each other to shreds. Because it's just a moment of total outrage, rightly so in some cases, completely wrongly so, by the way, in other cases, right? Like very dangerous heresies and, you know, just stuff that will end people's careers, I think. And we saw it, I mean, even our Republican leadership up here in the Capitol shifted because they said, we can't do this like, it's the Antifa game and like whatever, you know, just trying to bait people. That ugliness has got to just be crushed. And so it's like how to kill that from our politics and remove that from ourselves. It's like, I'm rooting for Scott Wilk to just be, we're going to completely disagree on policy, but now at least he's going to try to level set with just an attitude of like what's out of bounds and what's not. So while we try to restore that, fix the entire economy and try to like not kill thousands more Californians, we've also got on our hands a poverty crisis and a climate crisis and a criminal justice crisis. So it's a big question, Stacey. I don't know. I couldn't tell you one thing over another, but I think it's a year about competence and execution from my perspective, and being really honest and straightforward with people, and not overselling our work, and just like trying to execute a few concrete things and deliver and hopefully restore a little bit of trust. But I don't know. I don't envy any of you on the ground right now. And I'm sure I'd be so curious. I mean, some of you have been doing this a little while. I see the Tiger of Artesia on the line here. And I know Mayor Horvath is like, you know, been through the ringer too. Ali, nice to see you, sir. And like,
Good to see you too. Good to see you too.
Yeah. I don't know. Are people as angry at you as they are at me?
They love you, man. They love you.
No. Nobody loves government right now, do they? I don't know.
I think you pointed out something that all of us are seeing at the local level and the county level, and obviously you're not immune from it either. we're not at our best, I guess, all across the board, and it's time to rebuild and move forward together. So
yeah,
we need to be focused.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm telling you, step by step. Just don't overpromise. That's all. Just manage expectations the right way, and we'll start to chip away at this. And the Dodger Stadium wait line will go from 7 hours, like my father-in-law waited in, down to 2, hopefully, and more sites will pop up and people get safe and healthy, and then we'll get back to rebuilding the state. So thanks for the time and the leadership. You're crucial right now. So appreciate it. And you get back to me with the bill. I'd love to work with you guys. We'd love to run something and yeah, get into some good trouble.
Yeah, we're here to present solutions that hopefully you can get behind and support as well. Thank you so much for taking the time today with us. And, you know, we'll all give you a virtual thank you very much for being here with us.
Oh, and I don't know what she was talking about, by the way, with Saddam Hussein. I don't know what that, for any of you who heard the introduction, I'm just kidding.
The palace. Oh, well, yeah.
It wasn't a palace. It was like, yeah, we were on a tour with special forces. And we they had actually taken out one of the compounds, and we ducked in, and they were all eating Burger King on Christmas Eve. Really strange, lonely way to celebrate the holidays, but it opened my eyes to what soldiers do. It's anyway.
We thought it was an incredible experience. We were
for another time. No, yeah, I changed my life. So
thank you for being here with us. Take care.
All right.
All right, everyone. Thank you for your time and attention. I'm going to hand it back to Marcel. Do you have any closing remarks before we end our session?
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. Just real quick, we have one more video to go, so bear with us. I know you all like to start dropping off, but if you would please entertain us for just another minute or so, then we'll let you get back to the rest of your day. Give me 1 second.
In the mid-70s, there was an insurance crisis. Case law was finding that there were liabilities associated with cities that some insurers hadn't really perceived before. The Contract Cities Association had an infrastructure in place to address a variety of issues, and so they put their city managers committee on the task of trying to come up with a solution for this insurance crisis. When the cities formed the California JPIA, as we call it today, it was really about ensuring that there was reliable coverage available. We work with the members, finding out what's going on in their organization to try to help them manage risk better.
All right, thank you all. Appreciate you being here. I have a quick announcement for next week. Please join us for our 4th and final installation of our virtual Sacramento legislative tour. We just confirmed actually during this meeting that Lieutenant Governor Eleni Koulikanakis will be with us next week. She'll be with us right at the top of the hour, so please, you won't want to miss that. We're fortunate to have heard from very high level government officials with the state, and so very important to the work you're doing. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Stacy.
All right, thank you, Marcel. That was great breaking news. And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for your thoughtful questions and attention. And we'll see you here same time next Thursday. Stay safe in the meantime. Thank you, everyone.